In order to begin our donut still life, the first thing that we need to do is create a background. In this case, we're going to create something that looks like a tablecloth. So your tablecloth could have stripes, it might have plaid, it might have floral prints or flowers, or any other design that you'd like. Some artists make a living out of designing different types of fabrics that can be used for clothes and curtains and even placemats. So this is something that some real artists make money doing. Once you've decided what kind of design you'd like to create, the next step is to use markers and draw it onto a piece of paper. We want to fill the entire piece of paper with our design, and the next step is to add some watercolor paint. I've created my design that I'd like to use for my background. So now I'm going to add a little bit of watercolor paint to certain parts of my picture. You have a number of different options, so I'd like to show you a couple of different things that you could do. The first technique would just be to use my watercolor paint, get it wet, dip the tip, and just paint right on top of my lines with the same color. So we used watercolor markers to create our design, and adding a little bit of water onto it will make the color spread out. So bleed together. It actually looks a little bit more like fabric when we do this. So I can still see some of the marker showing through, but I can also see the watercolor paint. Of course, if I chose to use a color next to the red on the color wheel, that would create a different effect. So orange is next to red, so is purple. I could test that out. I think I like the orange on top of the red marker, so maybe I'll do that for all of my lines. A third option would be to fill in some of the spaces around the lines. So maybe I'm not going to paint on top of my lines, I'm going to fill in the negative space. In that case, I'd need a fair amount of paint already mixed for me. I like that color. And then I can carefully fill in certain sections. As I was painting, I found it very helpful to mix my color ahead of time in the top of my watercolor box and make a good amount of it so that I could just continue painting without having to mix every single time. Once I've finished designing my fabric or my tablecloth, I'm going to take it to a printing station. At the printing station, you'll see some scrap papers. I'd like you to write your name and code on the back. And now we're going to print some donuts. This is going to be a practice paper. So what you'll do is grab one of the pool noodles on the printing plate, and I'm going to dab it a couple times on the sponge that has some paint. You should be able to see a fair amount of paint on the noodle. Then you'll press it onto your practice paper. There's a donut. I even love the texture that it creates. Once you've practiced, I'd like you to add maybe 5, 6, 7 donuts onto your fabric or your placemat. It's okay that you can see through the donut and see the pattern because we're going to add more decorations to it. If it doesn't turn out super dark, you can add more paint to it. I also think it would look nice to make some of your donuts go off the paper. So I'm going to place this one here so that part of the donut is going off. That makes it look like there's a lot of donuts. So it's kind of exciting. So I'll fill up my paper with a couple donuts, a couple more rather. You should have a total of 5, 6, 7 donuts. Then this is going to go on the drying rack.